welcome to this week's episode of Pensado's Plays. He's Dave Pensado, I'm Herb Trollick. And hey everybody, we've got a winner. That's correct. The Pensado Fall Free-for-All Grand Prize winner has been selected. We selected by random.org, so we have no control over that. And before we announce the name, want to thank our amazing audience for all your entries. Almost 8,000 of you entered from all over the globe. Also thanks to our partners, Warm Audio and Groove 3 for sponsoring this thing, plus the good folks at SonarWorks, Isotope, Eventide, Tascam, Leapwing, Audio Sorcery, Rhino Records, and IK Multimedia. And because of these great sponsors, the grand prize winner will receive a guest slot right here on Pensado's Place. We're going to Skype you in and talk to you. A mic compressor and mic pre from Warm Audio. This incredibly beautiful box set, Loving the Alien, David Bowie's box set from Rhino Records. From Audio Sorcery, their brand new D-Mix Pro software. A lot of folks are talking about that. From IK Multimedia, the iLoud Micro Monitors and Total Studio 2 Max. Tascam's Porta Studio and Track Factory. Incredible bundles like Isotope's 08N2, SonarWorks Reference 4.1, Eventide's Anthology 11, Leapwing's Dyne 1 and Center 1, something Dave uses and I think is up for Sound on Sound's Plug-in of the Year. Dave's book, The Art of Recording Vocals.
Like that too.
And a year-long all-access pass to Groove 3's video series. And now I think we should get to the grand prize winner because that person wants to win all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I won.
All right.
Pretty sure I won.
The winner of the Pensado Fall Free-for-All is, from the Motor City of Detroit, Michigan, the one, the only, John David Butler.
John
Yay!
David. Yay!
Congratulations, man. You are the winner. All the good stuff will be headed your way. We'll also be in touch with you to have a segment on the show. We'll Skype you in. And what we hope is that your audio journey will be even better and we helped along the way. Also, congrats to the weekly winners. In this contest, because of our sponsors, we had 13 winners, all who won significant prizes, plus everybody who entered won something thanks to Groove 3. That's fantastic. That's the way we like to do it. That's what we call Pensado style. So thanks to all you guys. Now, before the ITL, just a quick note. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter. Make sure to hit like, subscribe, and notify. Dave, why don't you grace us with this week's ITL?
Dave Malletpour dropped by my studio, and he knows so much about studio monitors. I asked him 6 questions that I think you should check out. Hey, glad you dropped by. We're talking with Dave Malletpour, who made my Asperger speakers that I'm just absolutely in love with. These are the Solo 15s with the 18 subs. I highly recommend them. I use them every day. Today we're going to discuss 6 points about speakers. Dave, my buddy.
Hey, good to see you,
pal. I miss being up in Boston. The manufacturing facility looks amazing, and I understand you're expanding a little bit too now.
Yeah, we've moved into a new 15,000 square foot building, warehouse, workshop, and offices where we can really expand what we're doing and explore and even have listening environment ourselves.
Yeah, so. One thing that I think separates you from other manufacturers is there's pretty much not much that you don't do in-house. Like you build the cabinets yourself. The horns are CNC'd out of one piece of wood. You manufacture the amplifiers yourself. It's also in-house, and that gives you a control that a lot of people don't actually have access to, right?
Yeah, well, you know, we do have some partners that help us from the driver side and the electronics. You know, today building things, you have to tap into finding and exploring where the very best products can come from, and then find people who will really work with you to, you know, help you with your mission. Our mission is based on trying to find the very best components and combining them rather than, you know, building to a price. We're really, you know, trying to find a way to create a product that has no limits in terms of what it can do, you know, and that means pushing our manufacturing partners to give us the very best products.
What's the difference between these hi-fi speakers I see that are 20 feet tall and have 1 million vertical columns, speakers in a vertical column? What's the difference between hi-fi speakers and studio monitors?
Well, it's a great question because, you know, as we've found, you know, on one end of the extreme, you know, you have some very elaborate home hi-fi speakers that are not necessarily designed to withstand the type of dynamic range that you create when you're using compressed audio. Tracking a drum kit, for example, would be really different on a speaker that's really designed to listen to mastered product.
I never thought about that.
And they're really designed to go freestanding in any kind of living room environment. But we're also not making decisions based on those. We're not deciding, hey, this song's vocal part that might be a hit record. We're not necessarily choosing to do that on that kind of a speaker. But there's another element to it, which is the type of components and pricing that you're paying. And a lot of times in the consumer market, there's a big stream between the manufacturer, the distributor, the reseller, the installer, all these different layers of...
That adds cost.
It adds cost and margins for profitability for each of those different levels of distribution. And then I think people in the hi-fi market are also working more on a retailer type model where there's a huge margin at the retail side of the business because they have to pay for things like a store and months of not selling the $75,000 speaker just to sell the one pair they do sell. So I think you're getting in the pro market, we're really used to in our business getting the lowest margins when you're buying pro audio gear. The studios are built on that.
And the mythology that you can't put big speakers in a small room, is that somewhat true or is it a myth?
Well, today we're seeing a broad range of different size monitors that we've created to meet different size environments. And I think the thing that people are all looking for is, with modern recording, we need to hear full range. We need to hear down to the bottom end. And there's a lot of detailed information that is contained there that we weren't used to getting when we were printing on tape machines and using only small speakers. And I think people today, in order to get that modern sound, need to hear a little deeper into the bottom end. And I think a speaker like the Osberger allows a very, very detailed full range experience.
Yeah.
Did that answer that question? Or?
Yeah. I guess a lot of it depends on room tuning also and stuff. My room's not the biggest room, and we're essentially flat 20 to 20K, pretty close, right?
We have an incredible curve here, but flat is a
relative term.
It's a relative term. I think what we want to have is a reference.
Yeah.
And we've been working for 25 years. I have personally to look at what actually makes a reference curve, because what we want in a studio monitor, unlike a home stereo we were talking about or home theater listening environment, is we want that when we're in this room that it's going to translate to the outside world and uncover problematic areas that may be missed on other speaker systems, so that we can make sure that the best representation has been made to work on every system in every format.
Gotcha. I'm curious also about what's the importance of room placement. We were talking earlier, and it seems like there's a lot of information about where to place speakers, and it seems like a lot of the pros that we were talking about have different concepts. What's your concept about speaker placement? You took forever to place mine. You were we were moving at 1/4 of an inch at one time.
Well, for a long time, we were putting speakers flush mounted in walls for a couple benefits. One is that we could get more SPL out of the system. These systems don't necessarily need more SPL. They're very, very powerful, and they can do what you need.
I arc weld with mine when we're not listening to them.
Me personally, I really love a freestanding monitoring system like this, and I think it fits a lot of today's way that people are putting together rooms, where isolation, if you build this isolation shell and then you put a giant speaker in it, now you have to isolate the shell from the speaker. The live room has to be, or your ISO booth has to be isolated from that. You're also potentially vibrating the entire structure, which might mean neighbors and other things. So on that side of it, I think for practicality, building a nice control room, you can put the speaker in the room, and we don't have to use expensive modeling and figure out exactly how the room position might sound. And even then, when you put a speaker in the wall, you don't have the benefit of having to be able to just slightly move it. Here, I spent a couple hours actually, and the way I do it is I play my pink noise and I turn my screen around so I can see it when I was moving your speaker.
Okay.
And I could see, I could put myself where I was looking at where you're seated and aiming it the way I like to aim it. And at the same time making micro movements and seeing what happened to the high frequency and the overall response, and trying to find a position that optimized that response, and then looking at both speakers the same way and finding this great point where suddenly everything kind of came together. It's also really important, and what people don't realize is that every speaker has a dispersion characteristic. One of the things that makes the Asperger's really unique and great for putting in a room is we have 110 degree wide dispersion by 70 degrees vertically, and that means we can create an aperture.
A big listening area.
A big listening area, but also avoid the reflective environments and get into the direct signal from the speaker. And so that's one of the most important part of actually listening is getting the direct signal. And that's why we switched to small speakers on our meter bridges to get away from the room, to push the direct signal as close to you as possible.
Gotcha.
But every room, you're really listening to speaker plus room. Even this little speaker in this room, the room has a factor in it.
One more myth I'd like to dispel, the concept of one sub being correct. Tell me if I'm wrong. I've experimented with one sub in different rooms, and then when I put two subs in the room, spaced closer to the space of the speakers, it always sounded better. Am I right or am I wrong?
Well, this might be a little pet peeve of mine, but I
Talking
don't.
to me?
No, not you. You're
Okay, good.
Love you, Dave.
Oh, thanks.
No, the single sub myth that I think a lot of people struggle with. And look, sometimes there's a practicality, there's a budget, and no sub versus one sub. I guess I would choose one sub if it was well placed and well tuned. In an optimum world, you'd want to support your low frequency on both sides of the system.
And then we have Snoop, who has subs all over the county in 3 zip codes.
Well,
how many subs did you put in his room?
He's only got a pair of double 18s, and it really fills that room beautifully. I think there's a few key issues. One issue is that when you have a speaker that's producing low frequency information, let's just say in that sub, the 2.1 type of scenario, if you're using a bass manager that can say, hey, let's scoop off everything below 85 hertz and put it in this other speaker, that might be one way of handling it. Another way is that people have a full range speaker and a sub that they're adding to the equation. And now you're asking, I've got multiple sources for low frequency information at different places in time, which is going to create complicated arrival time issues that are not necessarily supportive of the overall performance. And what we found is that by stacking or putting the drivers in a vertical array, you get a much greater coupling at the crossover point. It's much easier to predict where that needs to cross over, where the phase
that makes sense.
Combining is, and how to get the delivery time information at the listening point cohesively. And it's much easier to do that with a pair.
They're actually very usable, in terms of EQing. I've been using Asperger's for years, and these are special. There's something different than the ones I had at Larrabee. Can you explain? First of all, am I right? And can you explain the differences?
So I started building these about 20 years ago. A little over.
You mean years ago?
Yeah, exactly. And we started from the original designs from George, and he's a brilliant guy, and deep respect for what he's done, in both on the studio design and the speaker world. And I started exploring from there how to build them better. The basic design that provided was all the volume and shape and size that you need to do in porting, but how to build a cabinet. And over a long period of time of building hundreds of systems, we've really perfected what makes a difference in the performance of the cabinet. Even things like the horn itself, we make the horn out of a solid block of, it starts as 3 inches by 14 inches just to make each horn lip, and it has to be, it's basically rock maple, and it has to be fault free and knot free. And the amazing thing is when we went from using a laminated product to one block of wood,
you CNC those things too.
They're CNC'd, and there's a whole range of machinery that's used to get that exact curve every time, and to do it in a sensible way. But just something like changing that made the voice of the horn that much better. And we also spent a lot of time understanding what the fins did and how to optimize to get the smoothest response. So that combined with using some modern components that weren't necessarily available. For the longest time, we only had one choice to choose from for the top end, and our partners at Materion, who make our diaphragm, they push the limits of the product to give us something that is unmatchable. And
what I hear you're saying is if George had access to these materials, he could have had an improved speaker, but you have access and you took advantage of that.
Well, and I think in trying to make the very best product, every manufacturer, tries to strive to use the best and to get the best results.
And newest,
in the old days, one of the challenges also that I was when I realized that I was going in this direction, was that people would buy a design and one person would have one set of amps and crossovers, another would have a different set, and I'd get called to, come tune these, and you'd get there and there'd be no EQ at all, or there'd be some really odd, something from someone's old PA system. It was like, well, we had that in the back closet, so we used that, and you're like, and so one person's room would sound so significantly different than the next. And what I wanted to have was a standardized sound that was reliable, that was repeatable. And as we started getting into the DSP side of it, we could also really shape what makes that curve work and not be restricted by something like a third octave EQ. I can make any size filter I want in our software. I have 8 different types of filter sizes and shapes. I've got all these crazy tools that I can actually really manipulate the sound, and then on top of that, by having our amps and our crossovers and our own drivers, everything is controlled, so we know exactly what the outcome is, rather than, hey, maybe I'll use this driver or that driver and this type of horn, this type of amp, and have a completely unpredictable result. So we wanted to have something that when someone hears that, they go, that's the sound. And the sound that you love is the sound that we've loved making, actually.
I love it, and I make money with it, so it's win-win.
Great combo.
This question is just for me, okay? I should know this, but what's the advantage or disadvantages of porting? Why do some speakers have ports and some speakers don't have ports? If you don't know what ports are, the little holes in the front. In this case, the big holes in the front.
Well, there's a couple. I mean, it's a big subject, but it has some very basic principles. A non-ported system is going to have a pretty nice linear. In most cases, if it's well designed, you're able to get exceptionally low frequency performance beyond what a lot of porting systems are going to be able to give you, depending on how they're designed. So the benefit of a port has there's a couple, but the big one is sound pressure level. We're basically taking the wave that comes off of the back of the speaker and having it come back out to meet the front of the speaker. And what's essential about that, and what the ports are doing, is the length of the port and the size of the port determines what the timing of how that back energy comes in to get in time with the front energy.
So the length of the port, that's actually a tube behind the hole.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes they're very small and sometimes they're very deep, and it's all about the timing of the low frequency from the backside of the wave.
Timing, you mean phase issues?
Timing, I mean phase, and literally, so we have this wave coming out of the front, there's a back wave coming out. It can't be in the same exact time by the time it goes there. So we have to choose where do we want it to come in order to support what section of the signal. So we tune it, and that actually determines the tuning of the cabinet. So where it starts to roll off is all related to what the port's doing, and that also gives us more control. So rather than saying in a sealed environment, we have what that's going to give us. With a port, we have all these different things we can do, and just changing that shape and size. So we have some predictive software that'll tell us that. But like a lot of software, when you experiment with actually doing it, you find different benefits that maybe the software says do it this way, and you try it and go, okay, that's cool, but it doesn't seem to have the je ne sais quoi, the punch or the connection that we're looking for. So we actually go and try, and we have a whole method of tuning those ports to get them to be optimized and to get that low frequency down to 20 hertz that you're hearing in this room, even when you're listening at, what was it, we were listening at 65 dB, and you can feel a little pants movement, and you can, just as if you were at full volume. So
incredible. Hey guys, thanks for hanging with us. Hope you enjoyed this with Dave Mallochpour. I learn something every time I see Dave. I just don't see you often enough. But one of my experiences last year that I truly enjoyed was hanging out at his facility. The care, attention to detail, the technology. I can't wait to go. I understand you got a new facility coming up real soon that's being built, and I want to be there and start all over again. I want those same 3 pizzas I had last time too.
Oh, those were good.
Those were good. Hey guys, thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you next time.
We recently caught up with one of the hottest vocal producers in the business. His clients include Lady Gaga, Selena Gomez. You can even see him in a current movie that's exploding at the box office. Please enjoy our conversation with the one, the only, Benjamin Rice.
How you doing,
bro,
man?
how are you?
Pleasure.
That's the last time I'm saying Benjamin. It's Ben from now on.
Ben.
But speaking of Josh, because Josh also had some time and was influenced by Cucurell,
Sure.
and now you, and I find him to be a super creative guy. The fact that he's a mix
Absolutely.
engineer is probably limiting.
He's an artist, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think so.
And I think you're similar because, there's engineering and there's other kinds of things in your background that have sequenced up to this point of being a vocal producer. That's
Sure.
your full-time gig, correct?
Yeah, I guess so. It just kind of
What is the
that way.
art of it that you love so much?
Just crafting a performance.
Yeah.
I think it's something I kind of fell into. You start engineering and vocal engineering, and you kind of learn from other people as well, of course, but you kind of draw on your own subjective feelings and creativity with that artist and get a rapport. And putting that performance together that people can respond to me, is a lot more fulfillment in doing that than just recording and not having much of a voice in the process.
Afterwards.
Yeah.
And there's an incredible kind of nexus of trust in that space because in order to get the type of folks who trust you with their vocals, who are identified by their vocals, in your case, Lady Gaga, Selena Gomez, so on and so forth, those are folks who are going to be careful about who they do that with, and there's got to be, so the psychologist part is as important as the vocal part, correct?
90% of it's got to be. It's
Is that
so
right?
much. It's so much of it because it's trust.
Yeah.
If someone's not comfortable, they're not going to give you the performance that, not that I need, but like the record needs, that they need as an artist.
Right.
When you're talking performance, what exactly are you talking about? Are you talking about the difference between recording through a pair of headphones as opposed to in front of a live audience? I mean, what does a performance entail?
Delivery. So like,
Believability, would that be
sure,
a component?
because we'll talk about like the character, like who is this person and this, what are we saying in this song? What's the story arc? What's the lyric? What are you trying to convey to the audience, to the listener? And so that delivery is, that performance is like, is that really translating to someone? Should that be breathy or should that be this? Should that be whatever? And recording sections and like trying to build it a certain way to where you're telling that story.
Give me a technique that could be labeled a performance-enhancing technique that you use with an artist. Give me an example of that.
I think it's good to...
You get them pissed off and like the old school guys?
Yeah, you just talk. Just what we're doing right now. Just hang out. Disarm the situation. If you don't already have a rapport with that person, I want them to feel comfortable with me. Because if they're not comfortable with me, in a lot of cases, if it's just me and the artist, then you're already starting off on the wrong foot. You're not going to be able to accurately communicate to them what you're looking for, what helps them.
Right.
Kind of pick up on their personality and what they kind of need, what they don't need, and what works and what doesn't.
So what was the biggest difference between, say, getting a performance from Julia Michaels, Gaga, and Selena Gomez?
Wow.
How much time we have? That's a big
one
question.
didn't perform live. One was a Disney graduate,
Sure.
which gives her a huge advantage. And then Lady Gaga is as good a performer as there is.
Absolutely. There's one thing I think in common with all those three, that's a really good question. That's a tough one. But there's one thing that I think is in common with all of them. That's an identifiable voice. Either of those three are singing or on a record, you know who that is.
There's a distinction.
Yeah, so the approach in making a record might be different, but the end goal is they're so special. Like all of those, like Julia's absolutely amazing. Yeah, Selena is absolutely amazing. She has a voice that you hear and like the tone. It's what I feel like she's known for and we're trying to like capture. Gaga, it's like she's Gaga. Yeah. She's so brilliant. And every song and every genre that she kind of works on is a different experience too.
How long do you prepare in front? Do you get the song, get some sense of it, figure out the character that you think it needs to be so you can discuss it? It depends.
Yeah. I mean, it's case by case. If it's a last minute call to show up and work on something, you just got to trust your instincts and hope the rapport is there. Luckily with those three, LG and Selena and Julia, I've known them for a long time, so it's not an uncomfortable process. Like I look forward to it. It's not really work. It's let's make something.
So as we sit having this conversation, we're in the midst of A Star Is Born.
Yes.
So The movie's hot as heck. The reviews have been amazing. The performances, both from Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga as actors,
special,
are
yeah.
amazing. It's a top 10. It's a #1 album.
Number one right now, yeah.
And so you had a hand in 3 or 4 songs, and then ended up kind of in the movie, correct?
Well,
how did tell us about A Star Is Born?
So that's true. But the start of it was I've been in, kind of her first call engineer for several years now. And so when it started, I got a call saying, "Can you come down? We're going to do 4 days with me and my band, her band, working on the movie thing."
That was it.
So like, how that's what you get.
Yeah, right.
You either say yes or no. Like,
Right, exactly.
I don't need to be sold on working with her. So
Yeah, exactly.
Sure, I'll be there. So 4 days, and I think the second day Bradley showed up, and I started to get a sense of, this is
big.
This is a thing.
Here.
Yeah, this is a thing. So, a year and a half later, so I initially she hired me to come in and be her engineer with the live band and her, and to craft these songs. They were still in the writing songs phase because everything's original in the movie. And there really wasn't like a traditional producer engineer role. It was her crafting stuff with other co-writes, Lucas Nelson, and a lot of other people. And Bradley had a huge hand in that as well. And then me. So like in that chair and that responsibility, that relationship grew over the year and a half of recording everything. Album producer with them as well, and then a co-production on 4 of the big songs on the album. So, and got 1 mix, which Tom Elmhurst, best guy of all time, and I felt that was like a weird thing. But Bradley had 1 song. He's like, "That's the feeling. Let's just keep that." But Tom did an amazing job. So to where I started 4 days and to where it stopped and to what it is now,
Did you
it's kind of
produce?
hard to take that in. Yeah.
Did you produce Bradley's vocals? Wow. How was he as a singer?
Amazing. I mean, when
He's
I
a
heard he was going to
talented
sing,
dude,
I didn't know how to.
Sure.
I think everyone felt that way.
Sure.
If he was bad, would you tell us? Of course not.
Of course not.
Okay, just
No, definitely not.
But he's a
No,
super gifted dude.
Well, he was very dedicated to it. He did a lot of work. I didn't know this till later, but he did a lot of vocal coaching and prep before we started doing anything. Because he was trying to channel Sam Elliott's voice and be very Southern blues, so he tried to lower his range. And so when we would work in the studio, and when he would record on set as well, live, that's what he was trying to do, is channel that voice for that character. So like he was very, very serious about it, and that made it a really inspiring process to be with someone. When you're surrounded by people that are that inspired and hardworking, it only brings out the best in you as well. That's what I loved about that project.
What was your process, or what is your process for selecting a particular mic for a particular singer? I don't record a lot of vocals, but when I have, it's burning out the singer versus finding a mic, and so I prefer not to have the singer actually test microphones. What's your technique for finding the perfect singer?
Well, you don't really have time to do shootouts in a lot of these situations. I mean, the session's booked, they show up and we start working.
So you go with a tried and true first?
Yeah, well, with LG, we've used a 47 for a long, long time. I'll switch it up sometimes, but she's used to that too. And so she kind of sings into that as its own instrument. She knows how that feels to her.
Okay.
And we use the same one 99% of the time, it's hers. And so when you have something that's already kind of working, I've tried other things out of necessity, or we don't have it with us. But for her, that's a tried and true.
That's what LG told me when she and I were talking about it.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that.
Absolutely. Actually, just to tell you, when you had your studio in Burbank at Oasis, she came out to listen to a record being mastered, and she could not have been nicer.
She's awesome.
Like there was a
She's
ton of
sweet.
people around, and
She
they were
wore
telling
the
people to
meat
get out.
dress,
They were telling people to get out of the hallways and stuff, and she was like, "No."
she's dope, man.
And she could not have been cooler. So
I agree.
that was my. Do you also write and do other things too, and write songs?
I do. I'm getting more to that. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I mean, I feel like my role a lot of times with her and other artists, like you're helping shape, suggest, like you're in that kind of like traditional production type role. But when you're at the helm, it's a lot easier to do that because you're doing both at the same time.
Right.
So just kind of being like their guy to help get what it's their vision. You're just trying to help create it.
And the reason I ask is because in other well-known vocal producers that we've either had on the show or that we know, that trust that gets established has often extended to, let's try something creative, or
Right.
oh, I like that, let's work on it together because
Yeah.
and something will grow.
Well, it's got to
out of
build
that.
organically.
Right.
You don't just go into like, I'm going to write a song with you today. Based
Absolutely.
on what? Like,
Yeah,
do you know this
exactly.
person? What, So it's nice to see that the relationships over like the last 4 or 5 years that are nurtured into what we're doing now. Like, I'm very grateful for that. And to grow with them is amazing, yeah.
Do you have, do you have certain genres that you do more than others, or can you vocal produce in any space? Could you do a rap track? Could you?
Sure. I mean, it's an emotion.
Yeah.
I mean, not everyone's gonna be the best fit for every person.
Sure, right.
So you can do a K-pop band?
Kill it.
My Korean's not great, but but sure. I mean, if you're just
There's a lot of K-pop in East Texas.
yeah, I grew up swimming in it. Yeah.
No question.
It's an emotional thing, like whatever that is.
Apologies for that. But when you vocal produce, like say a group of singers, and they all each have to have their turn on the microphone, how do you referee that?
That's always fun. I don't do too many groups. I've done a lot of solo artists, but I've done a few things with the Backstreet Boys recently that haven't come out. Maybe they'll come out, I'm not sure. But that's a good example of like using all those guys. To me, that was like kind of a first time to work with them, but also to work at like, do they know the song already? Do they sing together? What's the approach? You can take any approach. Theirs was, I get one guy for a couple hours each, staggered. So who am I going to use for the pre-harmony if I think a pre-harmony would be really good on the pre?
Right.
I don't know. I hadn't heard all 5 guys yet.
Right.
So my first approach was try to gather as much as I could from each person based on what's working, what's not, so that you have all the pieces that I can then work on and arrange and massage later. And the more I've done a few of those, you kind of get the sense of this person's voice is great for this section, this person's voice is great for this, and you kind of cut some of that time out of hunting. Just try to trust your instincts, but solo person's a little easier, just kind of work with that one artist.
When you do backgrounds, are you utilizing that person in stacking? Are there go-to background singers that you get if you need a...
It's usually the artist. And that's just based on the people I've been working with.
Sure.
LG does what she feels, Julia, same thing. And so it's really whatever's working in that moment, you kind of take that ride and go with it.
Got it.
And that's usually what works best to me.
So
we don't change the tone or the delivery of it, but it's still...
Look, there you are.
There I am.
Oh, look, David Bowie's on the left.
Those are some of the co-producers on the record, too.
I don't know who that is.
Mark Nyland, Paul Blair, DJ Wet Shadow, and Nick
Who's
Jonas.
the gentleman on the left?
Very cool.
Mark Nyland.
Oh, he's talented.
He's a happy-looking guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's a real happy. I love him to death. He's great.
Did you find the process, because the movie process is longer, there's a lot of people to satisfy, there's a lot of people who go on. Did you find that taxing, or is that something you like? Or?
It was taxing and exhilarating.
All at the same time.
'Cause I'm the kind of person, I love to work on it. Like, the more you can work with someone, the better, always. Like a onesie, twosie session here and there, you don't getting in that relationship takes a lot longer once a month.
Right.
But when you're with some people all the time on a project, there's more that goes into that, but to me it's more rewarding because you're there for every single step of it, and that's what this was.
Yeah, the emotional bonds. I know when I had one opportunity to do a Broadway thing, and when it was over, it was the toughest project ever. I had to leave. It was just so, because you become this family, and then you're breaking up this family, and it's...
But when we finished it, LG and I were at Randy Merrill's Sterling finishing the mastering for the soundtrack. And when we finished, we walked out, and that was like the moment of like, shit, we're done.
Right.
And I just crashed. I was like, we went and had a drink and just like shaking, like, oh my God, what do we do now? There's that big crash.
Absolutely correct.
It's like as much as we were like, I can't wait to be done, I wanted to start over and do it again.
Absolutely
it's weird,
correct.
but it's kind of how it was.
Now here's a weird question for a vocal producer. I don't know if I've ever asked Cook that. Are you a singer?
No, not really. I can sing.
Sure.
I grew up in church, like I can sing, but I'm not gonna sing.
Gotcha.
My approach when I think it's helpful. You've talked about this a little bit too. I think not being a great singer or being known as a singer can make me more effective to the artist for two reasons. One, I'm not going to be intimidating them singing an idea because it's not going to sound great coming out of my voice. So they're not going to be intimidated by me singing better than they can. That's never ever going to happen. So I think there's a little of like trust that if I'm trying an idea, they get that. I'm brave enough to sing to them, so you should be able to sing to me. Kind of a psychology.
Right.
And the rest of it is, I just enjoy hearing a good singer and making a performance since I'm not one. So I'm trying to help them make a great vocal from that perspective.
How important do you feel the timing of the vocal? In other words, the groove that they sing at. You're a drummer, and because it feels to me like a lot of the tracks I get, seems like it's ignored. which doesn't mean it's bad if it's ignored. Some people do it naturally, but
Sure.
what do you do to put things in time or in feel? Let's say
I try to spend a lot of time on that. I do the final groove in Melodyne just because that's the easiest for me. Kind of macro tool to be working on massaging maybe pitch or splits or changing melodies, as well as like grooving into the track a certain way.
So you sit there and modify it till it fits your feeling.
I mean, ideally you want to try to capture it correct in the way that you want in the spot, but at the same time, like you don't want to be so technical and cutting line by line, trying to get precision in the moment that they're not able to just perform.
Yeah.
So like, give me a good performance, and then we can like craft from there.
Later.
The beauty of the tools we have today is we don't necessarily have to create anything, but when you get a good performance that has a flaw in it that is noticeable, you can correct that.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
Do you find that you are really overseeing the mix of the records as well too, so that the vocal work stays with
Well,
particularly
I want to get
clients
as close as possible. I mean, ideally, I mean, you know, I think you got to take it as far as you can possibly take it, just out of pride for yourself and for the artist and for the record. Usually in vocal production, if that's my role, it's just doing vocals. I'll spend a lot of time trying to get it to what I think it should be, and print off stems for that. That way, that can stay intact.
Gotcha.
Wet, dry, you know, you control, but I don't want to make someone start over on something that I've already tried to make what I think is good.
Are there different mixers whose hands you trust putting your vocal producing work into? Do you have certain go-to?
I mean, Josh is a great one.
I was going to say, you got your manager's here who happens to be his wife. But Josh is excellent.
Well, and working with Tom Elmhurst on the soundtrack, like that was a first for me to be able to work with him. I mean, he's an amazing guy, and he really, to me, is an artist mixer. He really puts his feeling into the records. So to be able to be in New York at the same time, because her and I had the room next to him, we're kind of finishing it all together. To be able to walk in his room and hear how it's developing from what we had was a really nice thing.
I bet it was amazing.
Yeah, it really was really cool.
Any vocalists that you want to work with that you're...
Oh, man. Nothing's good. I don't know, put in my spot, I don't know.
I'm warming you up for batter's box.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm pretty lucky to work with the ones I've got so far.
To say the least. To say the least. I mean, it all. I mean, you alluded to it earlier, but Gaga's talent is like insane.
She's so diverse. I mean, Tony Bennett stuff.
Right.
You know, the old pop stuff, the new pop stuff, the soundtrack.
Right.
I mean, she's so versatile.
Right.
And she's a jazz trained type singer too. So like the wheelhouse she can work from is. So I love working with her so much. It always keeps me on my toes, learning something new. Wherever direction she goes, I need to go with her and figure out what that's going to be. And you grow a lot in that process. In hindsight, you don't realize it in the moment, I don't think. But
when you did you did the feature on the Zed record, right?
Ellie. Happy Now. Yeah.
How was that?
Great. I mean, Ellie's just has such an expressive voice. She's very natural. That's just what she does. You hear her start singing like first couple passes. You start a session, first few passes, that's going to give you the gauge of like, oh shit, this is going to be, or oh man, this is great. And that's how it was with her. It's like, damn, she's really, truly has a really special voice. It came together really fast, actually.
Do you get calls from folks in the EDM space or mess around the EDM space much?
No, not really.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
it's
a vocal thing.
It's a word of mouth business in a sense, and people knowing you worked on certain records, they might want a similar thing, but not too much. I think a lot of EDM guys will do the vocal themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they have a specific thing. And I'd prefer to work with an artist that kind of has a voice they want to experiment with and try. There's more flexibility than just that style of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Herb and you, Benjamin, when did we really start hearing about producing vocals as a separate profession? It seems like only about the last 10 years, it seems like that it's actually become. And I think Kook was the first one I saw back in 2007 when we were all in Vegas. It's not a recent thing.
It's a morph thing from my chair, because where it seemed to be a distinctive thing was there would be these units that would sing backgrounds, and they would go to those units, and that unit would have a leader, and they'd go to that leader and have them prepare the background vocalist to do a background part, the Waters and these other kind of folks that were really famous. And so they would kind of prepare, and in the preparation, their leader would prep them, but that never applied to the star, to the artist. And it seemed like the producer job was not just the music, but also to get a great vocal. But I think
I just had a thought too. When
Well,
you're
well, it
done.
just feels to me that as specialization came about, specialized technical tools,
Yeah.
specialized sessions,
It's become compartmentalized.
home record,
A lot of this.
and so specialists have jumped up because you would get a specialist solo guitar player when there were session musicians or this kind of thing, or a specialist engineer. And as it became compartmentalized, everything became, somebody said, let me be good at that.
Yeah.
And then all you have to do in our business, as you know, is win at it. And then once you win at it.
Well, I never meant to get into it, honestly.
Right. That's what Coop said.
It's just that I feel like my career, anyone's career is probably the same thing. It's like as one door opens, it may not be the one you thought, but you got to go that path and make the most of it. And hopefully you get to where you ultimately want to go. Just kind of fell into it, to be honest.
What about this? Maybe a little bit before that, there were producers that did beats and did tracks, but that weren't good at recording vocals, so they handed that off to someone else.
I think it's part of the specialization. I mean, I think as we have grown and evolved in the business, and you can't underestimate, for whatever it's worth, the role that technology has played in the music space. So from players to recording to specialization to mobile to there's just no limitations. And certain people get good at certain things because that's what they gravitate toward. And then I also think that we've kind of had this is not a word, but the hybridization of music, where you're kind of in all kinds of different things.
You gotta wear a lot of hats.
You do.
I think it's good too.
Yeah, you do have to wear a lot of hats, and then not everybody can wear all the same hats.
No.
You know, and so that leaves room for opportunity to
I think every artist doesn't need the same level or style of vocal production added to their system. It depends. Some people need more of that than others, and I think it just changes. Some artists, they just need a trusted person, like really make sure they're getting what they need out of it, that they're really happy, and then they trust to like take their vocals and take care of them. Whereas other people, they might not know what their voice is yet, and you got to work a little more intimately with them if they're a younger artist. So it kind of requires different things, but a lot of it's just the psychology of it, and being nice.
And I think his point is really, really cogent in this regard. Like, your emotional relationship with your software plugin is not going to be the same thing. When you're dealing with an artist, and let's say they're going through stuff, you've experienced this, they're only going to get in front of people that they trust, or that's just not going to be, let me just get the person who made the song and I'm going to produce with them.
Of course.
It's just not going to happen. So I think also artists and creators and everybody in the business are now working under a different kind of pressure than when we were coming up. I'm not sure it's different, but it comes at you from so many different places, and social media and all kinds of stuff. Like there's a different. So you got to be around places where you feel safe. To go be great. I think that's true.
Yeah, and I think work on Stars Born, like since that was a year and a half off and on, like there's long chunks and then like intermittent chunks we'd work on it.
Yeah.
Still need to be available to my other people that I'm very loyal to.
Right.
So being able to like making everyone a priority and jumping around and being loyal to each person, I think is something that's very important to me. So no one ever feels like I've gone on to just do something else and I'm no longer going to be available for you. Like everything's equally important, and that can make the job very challenging, but I think I grow a lot from that, because you have to go in from live recording with the LG stuff on the Stars Born to a Selena track, and then maybe a writing session with Julie, and then back to the Stars Born. Like you're kind of doing a lot of different things, but I think in hindsight, I think that's helping because you cross-pollinate a lot of different scenarios into one.
Where'd you record most of the Stars Born stuff?
We started at East West.
Okay.
And then we did the majority of it at Village Studio D and Studio A.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Cool.
Love that place. Great working there.
Now tell us how important good management is, like the Buffster.
It's crucial. I mean, she tells me this all the time. Like I have to work on what I can be good at, and I shouldn't have to focus on anything else. And that's where like it's a team, and we have to work together. And as I'm growing, I need advice and guidance on where I need to go, and that's very paramount to, as you're growing your career, to have someone you can trust.
100%.
Her and Josh both, that's a very important thing to my career. Buffy.
Had to give Buffy a shout out. All right, Mr. Shout Out, how's your...
I'm busy, sorry.
I see you're busy.
He's critiquing my answers.
He's actually preparing batter's box, I bet.
Oh, shit.
No, I got that.
Oh,
okay.
You ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
We'll see what comes out. Let's do it.
Okay.
That little tinge of doubt that just crept in.
East Texas
just then.
people will throw you off, though.
Well, that ain't no joke.
Yeah, be careful.
Piano.
C12, C12As.
Compressors.
C1B 1176.
Horns.
Coles.
Reverbs.
140 plates, and I gotta say, the large chamber at the Zappa House LG bot, that's where I've been working. The real chamber, it's special.
Sub-frequencies.
Control them.
Stereo bus.
Varimu.
Guitar DI or mic.
Both.
Auto-tune.
Melodyne.
Room mics.
47s, Coles, anything sexy, just put it up. I'm sure it sounds great.
Vocals.
251.
I quit. The cheapest gear that you've ever used on a record.
Probably a little handheld cassette that we had recorded things off and then recorded that. So everything served some kind of a purpose.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I can see defeat. He
It was just so unassuming. His non-emotional, just, sort of bloodless.
Felt to me like he talked to Josh before he came here.
Well, he should. I mean, Josh was a Marine.
Yeah, that's true.
He kind of approached it like,
I'm pretty sure, Buffy's sneaky. I'm pretty sure she had something to do with it, too.
Could be. She's sitting over there looking like...
Got that angelic look.
Yeah, well, that's the new mother thing.
That's the new mother thing,
Underneath
yeah.
it, there's a whole other... we certainly appreciate...
Oh, thank you so much, man.
We go out and do some educational things periodically, and we like to bring people along or whatever, because oftentimes people who want to learn directly from you. So I don't know if that'd ever be fun for you to do.
Of course, it just makes you learn more trying to teach anything, right?
Yeah. And I think it'd be fantastic. Congratulations on the success.
Thank you.
I think when you have an emotional connection with an artist, it's just not a gift everybody has, and it has a lot to do with who you are as a person behind your skill set. So give Buffy our love for having you here, Josh as well too. And Dave, why don't you take us home?
I'm just sitting here thinking about something Herb mentioned during the interview, and that's specialization in our profession being recording audio. And it seems like it started around 70s, where you would split the tracking from the mixing, and some of the mix engineers Bob Clearmountain kind of led the way for that to be a specialization. There's all along, there's always been a lot of guys that just specialize in setting up and recording drums, live strings specialization. But it seems like now there's an accelerated growth coming to more minute specialization. Not that your path is minute, but what I'm saying, the pie has been sliced up to smaller pieces now. And it feels like to me, and I could be wrong, that the future of our profession is going to be somewhat specialization, and you might have to learn a lot more diverse skills. And if you look at Josh Goodwin's career, that can lead you into a bigger, you start in one lane, but it ends up spreading out as you show how good you are, and it gives you an opportunity to meet the people that can help you. So take a look at this specialization thing. I think there's something there. What do you think, Herb?
I think the beauty of today is now you can be technical and be an artist. Yeah. And you can find your artistry in your technical side and expand that, and people will recognize it. If you have success, they'll pay you for it. So don't limit where you're going, expand where you're going. And we'll see you next time.